Will everyone please join me in Gassho and repeat the Nembutsu with me? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats Namandats. Good morning, everyone. And good morning to our wonderful Dharma School students. Did you all have a nice time or have fun throwing the flowers in the air? So a lot of you probably didn't know this, but when we chant the Sambujo, right, there's the part that goes san ge, right? That part, literally raku, sange raku. That literally means as we joyfully scatter flowers around. Now, for the Dharma School students and then for the people in the Geijin, you're more than welcome to throw your flower petals up in the air. But as a priest on the Onaijin, I have to kind of be boring and just drop the flower petals. In the Tendai school of Buddhism, they are allowed to do a little bit more of a, they have the keha in the book, and they're allowed to do this neat movement where they bring the flower petal to their head and they flick it off. Sorry. You okay, Donna? Sorry about that. But again, this symbolizes a very joyous time where we can all gather, come together. And not only are we doing that, but in the Sambujo, we are inviting all the Buddhas. Like we're inviting Amida Buddha into our space. We're inviting Shakyamuni Buddha into our space. And we're inviting all the Buddhas of the 10 directions in our space to enjoy the Dharma with us. And how do we greet these joyous Buddhas? We throw flower petals in the air. Now this, of course, is a very important day. For those of you who are new, this is a celebration called Hoonko, H-O with the dash over the O, on, O-N, ko, okay? So Ho-on, I'm going to break this up for everybody, and especially for the Dharma School students. Ho-on literally means to, so the ho means to repay or to give back, okay, to give back. You hear that a lot, right? When we talk about giving back to your community, giving back to your society, giving back to your friends, giving back to your parents. This is kind of like when we say, especially when we give back to our parents, when our parents give us things, when our parents give us love, when they give us their guidance, when our teachers give us their lessons, all of those things. To give back, of course, is to say thank you, right? And we as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists are in a religion or in a philosophy of saying thank you. Saying thank you is so important. In a way, Namo Amida Butsu is like saying thank you. It's much deeper than that, of course. It goes beyond thank you. But the ho in ho-on literally means to give back or to repay. Ho-on in that ho-onko means the benevolence, okay? Benevolence or the great compassion or the joy, great benevolence, right? So what we're doing with ho-on means that we are paying back the benevolence. Ho-on. We are paying back the benevolence. We are showing our gratitude. We are showing the appreciation for the benevolence and the wonderful working of the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha that we receive in our daily lives. When we learn a good lesson, when we have those aha moments that we experience on a daily basis, this is what we are repaying. Okay? Ko means kind of like gathering or assembling, gathering of. Okay? So we are all gathered here today to show our appreciation, to say thank you, and to give back to the wonderful benevolence and the wonderful teachings that we have received, especially focusing on our founder, Shinran Shonin. Now, Dharma School students, take a nice look at our Onaijin today. Isn't it beautiful? I would first like to recognize a wonderful member of ours. I'm certain that for many of you, the flowers on the Onaijin, seeing beautiful flowers in the front here especially, has become something that you are used to now. You are used to seeing beautiful flowers up here on the Onaijin. And I would be remiss if I did not give credit where credit was due, but our wonderful member, Les Hitzman. Les, could you please stand up, and can we just thank Les for the beautiful arrangements that we see in front of us today. Now, Dharma School students, I am opening it up to you all, but what do you notice a little bit different about the front of our Onaijin today? What's a little bit different that you see up in front than what you usually see on a weekly basis? You can stand up and take a look if you need to. Yeah. What's one of the differences that you see? Anyone can answer. And you don't have to raise your hand. You can kind of just blurt it out. You can say. What's one of the differences that you see? Yes, Jet. The candles. What's different about the candles? The color, right. You all notice that on the Onaijin, we have red candles. And this is because we bring out the red candles in a special time of celebration. So for special services like Hanamatsuri or Gotan-e or some of the other Buddhist holidays that we observe, we bring out the red candles. Who here else can see a difference? Anyone else? Okay, so usually, here's a question. Which side are the flowers usually on? Yes, when you're looking towards the Onaijin, they're on the left side, right? But how many flower pots are on the Onaijin today? 2, very good. How many candles are on the Onaijin today? 2, very good. This is one of the biggest celebrations and commemorations we have in our tradition of Nishihonganji. And because it is so important and so big, we decorate the Onaijin with the beautiful cloths that you see, the uchishiki and mizuhiki. We put fruit on the Onaijin as offering in addition to the rice. What is all of this for? Well, once again, we are celebrating our Hoonko service. We are coming here to show our appreciation and our gratitude for our founder, Shinran Shonin. And as you can see, Shinran is depicted right here on this scroll right behind me. And you notice that his table's a little crowded too. He has oranges, there are tangerines on there, and flower, candle, incense burner, and the cloth. But again, we are sort of singling out Shinran because he is our founder, and he is the one we are currently giving our respects to, our thanks to. But Shinran Shonin, as you all know, passed away over 750 years ago. In fact, actually, it's more like 760 years ago, because 2012 marked his 750th year passing. Okay, so with this in mind, over 760 years ago, Shinran Shonin passed away. So why are we still gathering to say thank you? Well, let's just first clarify a couple of things. Just because a person has passed away doesn't mean that their influence or their teachings are not still working through us. We actually must remember, as Dharma School students and as parents alike, that we are all here. We are all able to assemble at this temple because of the founder, Shinran Shonin, because of his contributions and his teachings to us. He has given us so many wonderful things. Now, I know maybe for some of you, maybe Dharma School students and probably for adults as well, we don't often chant the Shoshin Nembutsuge, but we chanted that this morning. Now, I understand some of you probably think, oh, this is the long one, or oh, this one's so long. But if you can imagine this, our school of Jodo Shinshu requires that all priests have to memorize this chant. Okay, all 120 lines. We have to memorize this. And why is this? Because the teaching within the chant is so important, and it talks about our central teachings. Now, for Dharma School students, you probably remember that there is a teacher in your past, or you will have in the future, for you are now either in elementary school, middle school, or high school, and you will probably go off to college as well. There will be a teacher who will very much inspire you and influence you. You will remember this teacher forever. You will never forget their teachings, and you probably will remember some of the sayings that they have said to you over the years. You probably can recall from memory some of the lessons that they imparted upon you. And this is a good thing, because for lessons that really inspire us, we should continue to learn and read and reread on a daily basis. So this is an occasion where we all get together and we have beautiful we have the beautiful artifacts on the Onaijin to show our deep appreciation and gratitude to Shinran Shonin. This is a really important aspect of our teachings. So we have to remember that gratitude plays a large role in our sect of Buddhism, saying thank you, realizing that we are being given gifts of the Dharma on a daily basis. It never will stop. It never will cease. It will continue to nurture us and guide us in our daily lives. And it's easy to take this for granted. When things are given to us for free, when things are free, when we don't have to work for these teachings, we don't have to pay money to listen to the Dharma. When we don't have to pay money, or when it's free to listen to the Dharma, it can be slightly easy to sort of take it for granted and not think of it as special. But actually, if we're able to turn our minds just a little bit and realize how fortunate we are that we receive these teachings on a daily basis for free, and totally recognizing who we are as we are receiving these teachings, how wonderful is our life, how fortunate we are that we are here now. So with this in mind, Dharma School students, I would love you to, once again, really heavily consider this saying of Namo Amida Butsu. Okay? When we place our hands together and say Namo Amida Butsu, it's not something we do because we just say, oh, Sensei says it, so I have to say it. It's because we genuinely have an appreciation for all the gifts of life that we receive. The teachings that we receive from our parents, the love, the care, the nurturing that we receive from our parents, the wonderful care and nurturing you receive from the temple community around us, the ones that we all get on a daily basis. How wonderful and lucky we all are that we are sitting here in this community. But we also have to remember that we are here and that we are assembled because of the contributions and the teachings of Shinran. Because without Shinran, would this temple even exist? That is a question we have to consider. So while it might seem sometimes cumbersome or bothersome or too much effort to pay homage or to say thank you to a founder who was long past over 760 years ago, it might feel that way. But on the other hand, you are all here today largely because of Master Shinran. So with this in mind, I would like you to heavily, heavily say and deeply feel the gratitude when we say Namo Amida Butsu. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandavts, namandavts, namandavts. All foolish beings, whether good or evil, when they hear and entrust to Amida's universal vow, are praised by the Buddha as people of vast and excellent understanding. Such a person is called a pure white lotus. For evil sentient beings of wrong views and arrogance, the Nembutsu that embodies Amida's primal vow is hard to accept in Shinjin. This most difficult of difficulties, nothing surpasses. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Good morning again, everyone. Good morning. And what a wonderful day it is that we are all here to celebrate our annual Hoonko service. It is a little bit of a rainy day, but that's okay. We love the rain here in the Northwest, and we know that it brings wonderful life to us. So I personally am a big fan of the rain. So as you all heard, today is our annual Hoonko service where we all gather and pay our respects and our thanks to Shinran Shonin, our founder. And I think it was very important for us to chant the Shoshin Nembutsu Ge, as well as the Nembutsu and Wasan that goes along with it. For those of you who probably are not expert on languages, and by the way, I'm no expert on languages, but the first part of our chant was chanted entirely in Japanese's transliteration of Chinese. Okay? So if you notice in your book, when you look at the Shoshin Nembutsu Ge, it's all written in Chinese. All right? But when we go to the Wasan, the part that we just chanted now with the Namo Amidanbu, you will notice that it is written in classical Japanese. Why is this? This is because for a person who is, at the time that Shinran wrote this, for a Japanese person, it was probably very hard to read what was being written in Chinese. You actually had to have studied to read the Chinese language. And not only that, but just for a little fun fact, Chinese grammar and Japanese grammar are very different, if not opposite. So it would be hard for a Japanese person to just read Chinese text like as it is. Now, of course, Japanese people know a good amount of Chinese characters, so they might be able to get the meaning out of it. But at the same time, in order to be a priest in Japan, you had to be able to read, speak, and write in purely Chinese. And not just that, you had to translate it as well from Chinese into Japanese. So now, can you imagine having to translate from Chinese to Japanese, and now for us, we have to translate all that back into English. And then depending on whether you're translating from Japanese to English or Chinese to English, the meaning might be a little bit different too. Or at least what comes out of the translation might be a little bit different. But I think this is very important because as we could clearly see with Shinran Shonin, he didn't just want scholarly priests to read his work. Now, this doesn't mean that Shinran couldn't hold his own in debates or in scholarly arguments when it comes to the way of Jodo Shinshu or the Nembutsu path. However, the most important thing that Shinran did for all of us is that he brought Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, he brought Honin's teaching of the Nembutsu to all of us so that we could access it. He brought it to the people who were not educated, who were not scholarly priests, and who did not have time to devote to all of those austere and rigid practices that priests do on the mountaintop. He realized that there had to be another teaching for all of us that we could access, a practical one that we could incorporate into our daily lives. So for Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, just thinking on Amida Buddha or reciting Amida Buddha's name is enough. Just say the Nembutsu was the message that Shinran Shonin gave to us. And I understand we might be a little bit taken aback when I read the quote today, right? All foolish beings, whether good or evil, when they hear and entrust in Amida's universal vow, are praised by the Buddha as people of vast and excellent understanding. Such a person is called a pure white lotus. So when we talk about foolish beings, there is definitely not a pure one-to-one translation of the word bombu, okay? Bombu. This is a word that I've used before in some of my Dharma talks, but when we talk about bombu, something that Shinran talks about, he's talking about ordinary people, okay? I know we say foolish, right? But when we say foolish these days, it kind of sounds like I'm calling people stupid or ignorant or something like that. I'm not doing this in a pejorative sense. When we say bombu, I'm talking about beings like myself included who are unenlightened, who are still attached to our attachments, who are still filled with kleshas. We want things. I want things. I was very upset that I did not win the $1.35 billion lottery ticket. Someone in Maine is very lucky right now, and I'm kind of jealous of whoever that person is. I have jealousy in me. That means that I am an unenlightened being. I still have attachments. I still have wants and desires for my own selfish gain, as do all of us. I want a new car, I want this, I want to be able to buy a beautiful, like three-floor mansion or something like that. All of us have some type of desire. And this is the kind of foolishness that Shinran was talking about. All of us as ordinary people who are subject to the human condition. Yet, for all of us ordinary people who don't have time to devote to countless practices, memorizing sutras, memorizing the Buddhist canon, going on the 1,000-day marathon, we have the Nembutsu to guide us. We have Namo Amida Butsu. And when you think about it, the Nembutsu is not something that we just take, right? It's not something that we put out from our own selves. The Nembutsu, or the wisdom and compassion, is being directed to us by Amida Buddha from the realm of supreme nirvana. This is the teaching that Shinran opened up to all of the people of Japan. And I think this is why our sect of Buddhism is so popular, because we realize that we are limited as human beings. But there is this understanding that we are part of something much, much greater. We are more than just our individual selves. This doesn't mean that who we are as individuals or our uniqueness is not important. All of us are unique in our own way. We identify in a certain way, and that is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, we are also interconnected with all of each other. Interdependence is another heavy message that I believe Shinran was telling us when he was saying we are, when we recite Namo Amida Butsu. When we truly accept and rely upon the teachings of Shinran, this is the thing that is most important. I believe that Shinran had a message for all of us, and that this message still continues to resonate to this day. For a little bit of background, Hoonko is a week-long service that is done in Japan. Can you imagine doing 4 services a day? Can you imagine starting from January 9th and getting up way early in the morning to start the service at 6 a.m., then having another service at 10, the next service is at 2, and the last service is at 4. And then in the middle of it, we read the whole Godensho. Alex, our wonderful Dharma School teacher, Alex Thiessen, read the first chapter of the first volume of what's called the Godensho, which is Shinran Shonin's biography. This was written by his great-grandson, Kakunyo Shonin. And we'll actually get to hear another section, 2 other sections in this service read by our wonderful Tacoma Yaba members. We gather to this temple, I think, and to, if you're lucky enough, you can be able to go to Nishihonganji in Kyoto to celebrate the life and commemorate the teachings and continue to mourn the passing of Shinran Shonin, our founder. This is so important to our teaching because he is the central founder of our sect. Now, Shinran, being Shinran, would of course, if Shinran were here, he would probably be shaking his head on the Onaiji going, no, I'm nobody, or like I'm just a person who's carrying another message along, right? He's written this in his writings before. And in fact, in one of his disciples, Yu Yen, claims that Shinran said that I have not a single disciple. So Shinran considered himself just a messenger of his master, Master Honen. And we chanted about him in the Shoshin-ge today. Honen Shonin, Shinran's master, also said, just say the Nembutsu. Just say Namo Amida Butsu. Right? This Nembutsu is coming to us from Amida Buddha. This is so important. One of the things that I mostly appreciate, though, about the tradition of Jodo Shinshu is not just in the message, but how the membership over the hundreds of years of Jodo Shinshu's existence, the creative ways that the members have come up with paying back our thanks and our respect. That includes building temples, that includes the forming of Nembutsu societies, that also includes the way that the clergy, the people of the clergy of Jodo Shinshu have come up with chanting Shinran Shonin's Shoshin Nembutsu Ge. Today, we chanted Sofu style. This is one of the styles that's chanted of Shoshin-ge in our tradition. But first, there are three styles that we as Jodo Shinshu priests have to learn. Okay? The other one's called Gyofu, and I hope to eventually make a handout of that someday, and all of us will be able to chant it together. And the last one is called Shimpu, which is done directly on January 16th, okay, which is actually kind of in a few hours in Japan right now. So this is, these are very important ways of chanting. But can you imagine as well? There are 10 schools of Jodo Shinshu recognized in Japan right now. Nishi Honganji is one of them. We're one of the largest. The other one is Higashi Honganji. And they also have their own style of chanting Shoshin Nembutsuge. So each school probably has 3 or 4 other ways of chanting Shoshin-ge. What's really neat is that now, because we have the internet, they've actually made a website where all the 10 schools were able to put up their version of Shoshin-ge. But again, as wonderful as this is, we can't escape the fact that we realize how important Shinran Shonin is to this teaching. And of course, we have politics, we have disagreements, we have differing views on how to think about Shinran's teachings. But regardless of that, we realize there are still 10 schools that are devoted to the teaching of Shinran. And whether there might be differences in doctrine or in understanding of the doctrine, there might be differences in ritual and how we chant, but still, it is all for Shinran. And it's not that we're worshiping Shinran as this deity or godlike person, but we are definitely showing our thanks that we are able to come here together and be in part of Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. We are given this wonderful teaching and interpretation of Honen Shonin's understanding, that when we die, we are born into the Pure Land. When we pass away, we are embraced wholeheartedly by Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. And this is something I think that we are told time and time again. And as humans, sometimes we think it can't be this easy. It can't just be say the Nembutsu. Do I have to meditate? Do I have to sit for hours and listen to Sanskrit? No. You just have to say Namo Amida Butsu. You just have to fully understand and appreciate the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. And you have to feel it too. So once we get to this point where we're able to feel that, how wonderful it is, a feeling when we say Namo Amida Butsu. On this day of Hoonko, I think it is very important that all of us start to remember why we are here in the first place. Of course, friendship and gathering and community are all central aspects to our temple. But the teachings, the understanding that the founder gave us, the founder Shinran Shonin as the backbone of the foundation of this temple, is also incredibly important. So with this in mind, I encourage all of us to once again chant and the Shoshin Nembutsuge and the Wasan that goes with it on your own time, of course. If you have an Obutsudan at home, feel free to chant in front of the Obutsudan. Light a candle, light some incense, and chant the words of our founder. Thank you. Will you all please join me in Gassho? All foolish beings, whether good or evil, when they hear and entrust to Amida's universal vow, are praised by the Buddha as people of vast and excellent understanding. Such a person is called a pure white lotus. For evil sentient beings of wrong views and arrogance, the Nembutsu that embodies Amida's primal vow is hard to accept in Shinjin. This most difficult of difficulties, nothing surpasses. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats.